In this lesson, let's set up the units that we're going to be working with in our project and also start to build the walls of our living room. So before we actually get started building any geometry, let's go ahead and set up the working units that we're going to be using. Now I'm going to go ahead and go to Customize Unit Setup, and I'm going to change my units to US Standard. You can also change them to metric or custom units if you like. I'm going to change mine to feet with fractional inches to 1/32 of an inch. Now if you'd like to, you can use a different type of measurement, but just keep in mind that the values that I put in won't necessarily match yours. If you do that, you have to do a little bit of conversion there, obviously. So we'll say OK to that. And now I'm going to go to the Grid and Snaps toggle here. So I'll right click on this little Snaps toggle and bring that up. Under Snaps, I'm going to choose Grid Points because I want to be able to snap to those grid points, make things nice and straight. Under the Home Grid tab, I'm going to change my grid spacing to about 6 inches or so. Okay, so that means I can snap every 6 inches. I'll keep things nice and rounded here. Go ahead and close that out. And well, another thing I want to make you aware of is we're going to be using these transform type ins down here just to view our measurements. So you can see as I move the arrow around, you can see how those values are changing. And we're going to be working in our top view, so the only measurements that we're going to be looking at are the X and the Y. So you can see that right here at the origin, got basically 0, and then as we move over, you can see how those measurements change. So those are going to be useful for us in drawing out our wall segments. So we'll keep those in mind as we go. Now there are many different ways here in 3ds Max to actually create walls. You could use splines, you could use planes, boxes, a multitude of different techniques to build those walls up. The one that we're going to be looking at here is something that's actually a wall primitive. So let's look at how we can do that. So we'll go to the Create panel, and I'll just move the origin kind of to the upper left side there so that we have room here. And so I'm going to go to the Create panel, and instead of standard primitives, let's go ahead and open that, and we'll choose AEC Extended. And this gives us 3 different object types: foliage, railing, and walls. And we're going to be looking at these a little bit later, so let's go ahead and choose the wall. Now under the parameters rollout, you'll see the width. We can change that. Right now it's set to 5 inches. And the height is set to 8 feet. So that's nice. We don't have to worry about the width of the walls. We don't have to worry about the height of the walls. They're going to be uniform across our entire structure. Okay. The justification is going to tell you, if you drag a line from here to here, let's say, the justification will let you choose whether you want the wall to be on basically the outside of that line or the inside, or centered on that. So kind of similar to if you're doing a kind of a stroke in Photoshop or something. So you can choose whether your outline is going to define the outer edge of that wall or the inner edge of the wall, or if it's right in the middle. And I'm going to go ahead and leave mine on center justification. And now to actually draw this out, let's go ahead and activate snaps. You can hit S as well to do that. You can see it brings up the little blue blocks, and I can snap to here. You can see in increments of 6 inches. Okay, so to place our walls, we're going to simply click twice. So once at the beginning and once at the end. And the click at the end will actually signify the start of the next segment. And we'll see how that all combines together. But let's go ahead and start. And we'll just start at 0, 0, 0 all the way across. To create a click, and then I'll just drag this across. And let's say we want this wall to be about 26.5 feet. So I'm going to go ahead, and in the X you can see the value there. Drag that out to about 26 feet 6 inches. And you can see the value in the Y has not changed. So that tells me I've got a completely straight wall segment here. So I'll go ahead and click that. Now if I drag again, I'm not holding down any buttons, I've just clicked at the end point, and this brings up a new segment here. So now I'm going to make sure that my X stays at 26.5, and I'm going to make sure my Y goes to about -4.5. Okay, and I'll make a little alcove here. So we've got 26.5 in the X, 4.5 in the Y. Go ahead and click there. You can see, we'll look at this more a little bit later, but you can see how it's cleaning up those corners as we go as well. So let's create this little alcove. Let's make this about 5.5 feet. So we'll bring this out to about 32 feet and make sure the Y stays at 4.5 feet. Go ahead and click on that. And this segment will make about 10 feet. So we'll bring that to about -14 feet 6 inches. Make sure the X stays at 32. Okay, bring this over to 26.5, back to where we were, and 14.6. Go ahead and click on that. Let's go ahead and bring this down, and we'll make this the end of the wall down here at about 32 feet. So we've got 26.6 by about 32. Go ahead and click that. And now let's go ahead and bring this all the way over. And this time we're going to be going past the origin, okay, and actually off the viewport. Now if you're going to be dragging this off the viewport, one way to reframe this without exiting your tool is to actually go ahead and hit I, and then I'll go ahead and bring this back. Okay, so in this case I'm going to go past the origin by about 10.5 feet. So we go minus 10.5 and remain at 32 in the Y. Okay, and now I'll start to head back up this direction. Now I want to go back to make sure that the X stays at minus 10.5, and the Y I want to change to about 21 feet 6 inches. Okay, feel free to mess around with the values that you've got. If you want to make something that's unique, go ahead and do that. That's fine. These are just the values that I'm going to be using. Now I want to create this little alcove for the stairway, and so I'm going to come back in this direction. Make sure my Y stays at 21.6, and I'll just go back to 0. Okay. And now I'll head up, and this is the last segment that we'll be using, so I'll go ahead and hit I. And now I can just drag this up, and you can see I'm back at the origin. And if I click on this now, you can see that since I've clicked on that initial point, it's going to ask me, do I want to weld that point? Do I want to connect it together? Yes, I do. Okay, and now I can just exit this by right-clicking. All right, go ahead and turn off our snaps. And now what we should have, if we go into our perspective, is a wall here. You can see that this is 8 feet high. The walls are 5 inches thick, and they're following along with the lines that we created here. Alright, I can turn off, by hitting J, I can turn off that selection bracket, hit F4 to go to edged faces, and you can see how those edges, or those intersections, are really cleaned up. Okay, we didn't go in and select polygons and extrude or anything like that. We actually just dragged those lines across, and as we created those new segments, those intersections were really cleaned up nicely by 3ds Max. So this gives us kind of a nice framework here. You can put kind of a door and window here, maybe a window here, have this be kind of the focal point at the front of our room here, and then maybe some stairs back here and a door. We can do a lot of interesting things with this, but that's just one of the ways that we can create walls here in 3ds Max, is using the AEC extended wall primitive, and it also offers some other advantages as far as working with the door and window primitives that also kind of come along with that. So let's begin to look at some of the ways that we can use those in the next lesson. We'll start by